Good morning, good morning, good morning. And this is the day the Lord has made, and we're here to rejoice and be glad in it. I want to welcome you to Hope TV. I'm so excited that you've tuned in to get a daily dose of hope, and I'm excited that you've allowed me to be a hope dealer this morning. It means the world to me. Whether you've tuned in from Apple TV, Roku, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, the edoismith.org website, houseofhopeatl.com website, the House of Hope Atlanta app, whether you tuned in through the hopetv.com. I'm so excited that you're part of the Hope TV today, and it means the world to me. We started this platform about 7 months ago, and your support has been overwhelming. We don't take it lightly. Don't take your participation lightly. Don't take your time with us lightly. And I'm honored that you're here with us. Drop us a line. Let us know the city, the state, and the country from whence you are viewing. We need your viewership. And those who've tuned in to our newest distribution platform, the hopetv.com, God bless you. We've been so excited to have all of you to give so many great comments about our website. This is relatively new, a few weeks now, and we've been able to put all things Hope TV into one repository. The daily schedule, synopsis of most of the shows there. We're able to, you can go to see the TV guide each day. You can watch us live from hopetv.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter there. You check out the cadre of shows that we have there. Just a lot of good stuff. So if ever you want to know what's on the air, you can go right to it, get a TV guide. Somebody's called this the Netflix of for Christians. And while that's great, and while it's a little hilarious, hey, it's certainly a vision we want to have. Just bring you great content every day, and I'm so excited about what's in store. And we have programs for men, women, children, senior citizens. We have programs for married couples, singles. We have programs for mental health, exercise, you name it. It's there. It's a full menu of shows that you can watch. So help us get the word out. HopeTV.com. Check us out. Check out the daily schedule. 7, 8, 9 programs every day for your enjoyment and for your edification. So thank you very much for your support. I appreciate you. I hope that as we are in the month of October, I hope that if the states that you're in, that you've already casted your absentee ballots, that you're already involved in early voting. Yesterday was the first day in Georgia for early voting, and we broke records yesterday. More votes were casted, and of course they're trying to frustrate us. Long lines. Reported some people in line up to 12 hours to vote yesterday. And one of the tools of voter suppression is frustration. But I want to commend everybody who went out yesterday and endured the suppression, endured the foolishness, endured those long lines to cast your votes. So wherever you are, I want to encourage you to go do the same. Do not let this year pass you by. Make sure you go do that. I'm so thankful. I've been on some calls with my classmate from Morehouse College, who's known him for over 30 years now. Dr. Raphael Warnock, who is pastor of Historic Ebenezer Baptist Church, downtown Atlanta, historic church. Daddy King, Dr. M.L. King Sr., pastor Ebenezer, but he pastor Travelers Rest, where I served prior to going there. And Raphael Warnock is actually running for the U.S. Senate to fulfill. He's running for the special election. About 20 candidates in that election. So I want to just encourage you to check out his platform. We had a great call with him last night. We've only had 10 African Americans U.S. senators in the history of America. Only 10 African American U.S. senators, and that includes the 3 that we have now. He's running for U.S. Senate, and he's, of course, right now he's leading in the polls, but upwards of 10% over Kelly Loeffler, who I don't want to get into that right now, but just check out the platform if you enjoyed to check out Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. Please check them out, brothers and sisters. They're not running against each other, run for different seats. But I want you to just be familiar, those who are in Georgia. But check out all your candidates. We have Jamie Harrison in South Carolina is running for U.S. Senate, and Mike Espy in Mississippi. So go to vote.org to check out your registration to make sure they haven't done any tricky stuff with you. Magic Johnson tweeted the other day that he's been voting and they did something tricky even with his registration in California. So go to vote.org. Take you 1 minute to do it to make sure you're still on the rolls, that they haven't illegally purged you. They did about 300,000 illegal purgings of voters here in Georgia in 2018. So I don't want you having trouble at the river. Go ahead and check it out now. And if you can early vote, please do so. If you can early vote, please do so. If you can early vote, please do so. Please, ma'am. Please, ma'am. Please, sir. We got to do all we can to make this a reality. So vote.org. Check it out. And thank me later. This is a historic year, and I believe you're going to help do your part. So check it out. Vote.org. Vote.org. Need your help, please, ma'am. Please, sir. If you're in Georgia, you have the opportunity to elect 2 senators, and I'm very thankful I've been able to be in communication with 2 of those candidates, Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. I'm thankful for those conversations I've been able to have with them. But check out your local list, not just the national elections, but anything that's statewide and local in your particular municipality. So thank you very, very much. You know, it's amazing when we talk about this whole thing of voting, how government, I believe, is necessary. Government, I believe, is respected by God, because even God utilized government. The Bible talks about government. You know, Isaiah talks about how in Isaiah 9:6, for unto us a child is born, a son is given. His name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, and the government will be upon his shoulder. Upon his shoulders, we think about how God sent Moses to interface with the Pharaoh, because that was a governmental leader, and he wanted Moses to have a conversation with Pharaoh. How God put Nehemiah in proximity of King Artaxerxes, because Artaxerxes would have the power to help Nehemiah get the people free. You know, and so government has always been a tool. You know, God had a government called theocracy, but the people of Israel wanted monarchy. They didn't want judges; they wanted a king. And at the time of our text, government is. We've been dealing with the book of Philippians, and government is active even in the book of Philippians. For the challenge that we've been going through the book of Philippians in Morning Dew, and welcome y'all to Morning Dew. The Apostle Paul, had a problem with government. And the problem was so significant with government that he's incarcerated in Rome. When he wrote the book of Philippians, which is our text for Morning Dew, and in the 4th chapter, he's has issues with the government. Amazingly, Paul's issues with government were even prevalent when he initially went to Philippi. As I've shared with you, Philippi was named in honor of Philip II of Macedon, who is the father of Alexander the Great. Macedon, this region, this territory called Macedonia, is named in honor of Macedon, Philip II of Macedon. And around the 4th century, the early 4th century, Philip II designated a parcel of land. If you see number 5 on the screen there, that's the map there. That Philippi is named in honor of Philip II, and it's in the region of Macedonia. He's called Philip II of Macedon. So Macedonia is named for him as well. So he's a leader, governmental leader, if you would. And Philip wanted a place where his soldiers could live after they fought in battle. And so it was a colony for those soldiers who had fought at his behest. Well, around the time of the 1st century, this once inconsequential colony has now grown into a commercial epicenter. It's a commercial hub for the 1st century world. People come from all over the world to do buy and trade because of Philippi's coastal region, because it's in proximity of the Adriatic and Aegean seas, actually just a few miles inland from the Aegean Sea. And so because of the natural resources, because of its proximity to the coast there, Philippi was a desired travel hub. It was a place where people would want to go and visit. And so it was a serious, serious city for commerce. And so Paul's desire was to take the gospel to this cosmopolitan area called Philippi, this epicenter, because it was a place where people wanted to go. And then so on the second missionary journey, according to Luke in Acts 16, Paul, Silas, Luke, and Timothy take the gospel to Philippi. They're met by a young damsel. They get in trouble there because they cast a spirit out of a woman, out of a young girl. And when she could no longer fortune tell or soothsay to bring her owners money, she was considered property. Had this, it was really a form of first century human trafficking. And when Paul cast that demonic python spirit out of that young girl, when they could no longer commodify her, they drew Paul and Silas to the magistrates, again, the government, and the magistrates, the governmental leaders. And because the governmental leaders were complicit with the evil system, Paul and Silas were whipped with many stripes and inevitably thrown into jail. But that was a governmental decision. And so Paul's initial foray into Philippi had issues with governmental leaders. Leaders have always had an impact. This Acts 16, Acts 12, James got beheaded because of Herod Agrippa I, a governmental leader. After James was beheaded, he arrested Peter in Acts 12. Herod Agrippa I, a governmental leader. And so government has always had a significant impact on society. It's supposedly for the purpose of preventing anarchy and chaos. But government has a form. Government is involved, and often it's not for the protection of his people. And so Paul is in jail. He picks up his quill and writes here that in spite of wicked governments and wicked systems and people who try to tear people down, Paul really writes as he's dealing with wickedness in government, and he really knows that it's very possible he's going to die. And how the wickedness of government is so pervasive and so prevalent that it might take his life. But the blessing here is that he is able to have faith and to have strength in such a way that he says, if I live as Christ, if I live as Christ, if I die as gain. That he's not thwarted by what's happening governmentally. That he has a resolute faith, and that he believes he's going to overcome in spite of the obstacles. And I want to share that with us today. I think it's a great message that we see craziness and a lack of concern, a lack of empathy from governmental leaders. Sometimes it make you wonder, are they really trying to kill us? Particularly those of us of a different persuasion and different hue and different ethnicity, different culture. But Paul shows us how we can have a mentality, how we can have strength. And this is a book of mental health. And so many people have been struggling with mental health issues. And I was just touched Sunday. My favorite football team is the Dallas Cowboys, and their quarterback Dak Prescott had a major injury this past Sunday. It's been quite a year for him. His mother died recently. Back in April, his middle brother took his life through suicide, and Dak has been very vocal recently about his mental health. That since his brother's suicide a few months ago, he's suffering from depression and deep anxiety, and he's been vocal about his mental health. And a few people tried to criticize him for it, and he decided to not sign the contract offer that they were offering him because he felt they were lowballing him. And yet, and this past Sunday he's been playing a great all year. Broke his leg compound, fractured his ankle, and to see him take off that field and to see him cry. But that morning, Sunday, was Mental Health Awareness Day, and even going into that game, he was trying to bring awareness to mental health. I'm saying all that to say this: that what we're going through now this season, mental health is paramount. We talk about a lot of coronavirus and its physical nuances and the physical implications of what coronavirus can do to us physically. But this pandemic also can have a major effect on people emotionally and mentally. And while we do all we can to protect ourselves physically by wearing masks, by washing our clothes, by hand sanitizer, by proper social distancing, we do all those things to make sure we're protected. while, not eating around large crowds, avoiding mass gatherings. These things we do to make sure we help ourselves physically. But I want to share with us that just as we are intentional and deliberate about our physical health and about not contracting the virus and not spreading the virus, and we have practices and things in place, tips in place, we also need to be the same way and just as vociferous in our effort to maintain our mental and our emotional health. And Paul, while he's dealing with government, I call it Greco-Roman quarantine. He's restricted, he's restrained. Governmental leaders are wicked and full of debauchery and chicanery and duplicity. With all those things being said, Paul is resolute in spirit, and Paul is able to give us tips for daily living. And when I looked at what's happening now in our day and what was happening in Paul's day during the time of Philippians, there's a passage today in Philippians 4. We really walked through this entire book, and we're in the last chapter now. And today I want to give us some tips, 4 tips for daily living, because I think what Paul says to us, in effect, is while we're battling a lot of things, a myriad of things, trying to make these adjustments, whether it be through business, whether it be through education, a lot of pastors are stressed out, and I understand that, and it's important that we take care of ourselves. Go take a walk. I did something this Sunday that just may be just mind blowing for me. May not be much to you at all. But I was able to go get a massage on Sunday. I mean, think about that. I mean, it was such a big deal. I almost cried on my way. The fact that here I am on a Sunday morning, you know, feeling the need to go get a massage, and just the things that never had to do that in my entire life, because it's important to moment to meditate and relaxation. And when you're in church, something that you may not be a big deal to you guys, but it's a huge deal to me. Like, I need to do something just for my emotional health. I'm working harder than I ever have. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I said, one thing I want to do this year while we quarantine, I want to find somebody who's going to tailgate. Even though the Falcons are garbage this year, I want to go downtown and tailgate, put on my mask and eat some barbecue. Never been able to tailgate before. But never been able to go to a tailgate for college or for professional football. People may ask, why is that important? And what does that have to do with anything? It's important for your mental health. It's important to do something to live, because sometimes as a pastor, I make so many sacrifices. Since my sophomore year of college, can't hang out, can't go to the clubs, can't be normal. But now just to be able to get a massage on Sunday and be able to relax your mind and want to go to a tailgate downtown with a mask, small group, just to be able to do something those are intentional things that you can do. And I think Paul gives us some tips too. Maybe not the same as getting a massage or me wanting to go and tailgate, just to relax my mind, do something different, because I've never been able to do it as a young man, because I've been a pastor since I was 19 years old. But I think it's so important that he gives us those tips that we can effectively manage our daily living and maintain our mental health. Look what he says here in Philippians chapter 4. It blessed me significantly. In Philippians 4:4, listen to what he says. He says, celebrate God all day, every day. I mean, revel in him. Make it as clear as you can to all you meet that you're on their side, working with them and not against them. Help them to see that the master is about to arrive. He could show up. He could show up any minute. King James, rejoice in the Lord. Again, I say rejoice always. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Celebrate God all day, every day. We want to show people how life with God is better in every way, every day. And so Paul says a couple things that are necessary for daily living that can help your mental health. And I want to lift these 4 principles right quick for you. The first thing that he says that's needed for daily living is celebration. Celebration. He says, I want you to find a reason to celebrate. Find a source. Find something you can place your focus on for celebration. And so good to see y'all today. Thank y'all for being with us today. He says, celebrate God all day, every day. He says, what you have to do, he says, is you have to find something to celebrate. He says, celebrate God. Celebrate God. Celebrate God. Listen, this is very important now. He says, I'm incarcerated, but in my incarceration, I got celebration. He says, I'm in confinement. He says, but confinement won't stifle my celebration assignment. You see, he says, I'm incarcerated, but I'm not frustrated. He says, because what I've learned that in my incarceration, the key to inspiration is my celebration. He says, every day that you are awakened, I want you to celebrate God. Not focus on your, not fixate, not have fixation on your circumstances, but celebration of your Creator. I don't want you to allow being so insular about your problems to minimize you to have that when you get up in the morning, that alone is reason for celebration. When you look around and the family's well, and look around and nobody is deathly ill, when you're able to have the activity and the usage of your limbs, celebration. You can go to the refrigerator, to your pantry, have some oatmeal or some cereal, some milk and some water and some juice. Celebration. The fact that you still have a car that you can drive, has some gasoline, that the brakes still work, still have some tires on that are safe. Celebration. Well, if I don't have a car, but I got legs that I can call. I got a phone I can call Uber. I got a friend I can catch a ride with. You have a roof over your head. Last night, thieves or fires or murderers or no home invaders kicked your door in. Celebration. You know, the children in school may not be making A's, but they're making B's. They're passing. Celebration. He says so often the key to our victory is being able to celebrate. And those are things that we can celebrate. And if you don't have things, he says, which is easier for to celebrate. He said, well, I want you to do something is don't celebrate things. You can be thankful that you have things and be thankful for everything, you know, in everything give thanks. He says, but what I want you to do is I want you to celebrate not the things, but the God of things. You know, you can celebrate God for allowing you to have things. You can celebrate God for the things God has given you. You know, to God be the glory, you know, for the things he has done. But sometimes when the things don't look like what we desire, we lose celebration. Paul says, well, when the things don't line up, maybe it be the relationships or the people or the jobs, the resources, when the things don't line up, I want you to celebrate God. Celebrate God. Know who he is. Celebrate his favor. Celebrate his holiness. Celebrate his grace. Celebrate his love. Celebrate his mercy. Celebrate his sovereignty. Celebrate his benevolence, his goodness, his kindness. Oh Lord, we give you praise. Oh Lord, we bless your name. We lift our voices to say thank you for your goodness and your mercy toward us. We give you praise. Listen, you can celebrate God for goodness and mercy. If you don't have a girl or a guy, a man or a missus, celebrate his goodness and his mercy. And I think sometimes it is in the celebration that celebration sanitizes our perspective. Because when our eyes have been dimmed by lack, other things we don't have, celebration is so important. So he talks to them more about celebration. But then he moves from celebration to consistency. Look what he says. I like this. He says, celebrate God every day, all day. I mean, revel in him. He says, so what I want you to do is make sure that this celebration is consistent, that you consistently include celebration in your day, that you don't celebrate God just when the things are well, that I want you to find a way to allow the consistency, whether it be make it a daily part of your routine, whether it's through when you pray for your breakfast or your lunch, maybe when you arrive to home, Make it, maybe when you go buy groceries, find a way to interject consistency in your celebration. Not just when you get the good news, but every day of your life, consistently. Because what happens is ingratitude and issues can creep in if you're not careful and rob you of your joy. Comparison can get in. Comparison is a thief to joy. But if I interject consistency, well, my life becomes a consistent pattern of celebration. Celebration can change your life. So he talks about celebration. He talks about consistency. He also talks about thirdly clarity, which I think is a very powerful point as well. When you deal with this whole issue of clarity, and that's the whole perspective of being able to see versus not being able to see something. Because what happens a lot of times is people can't see, and when you don't have clarity, it just messes everything up. And so it's so important that if I can see, is it clear? Is my direction? Is my focus clear? Look what he says about clarity. That's point. Very, very important. The point about clarity. He says, I want you to make something as clear as you can. He says, make it as clear as you can. Here's the clarity. That all you meet, that you're on their side, that you're working with them and not against them. That every day, he says, I want you to make it clear. Make it clear that you're for people. Make it clear. He said, I want you to live a life that you try to bring positivity into every room. I want you to make it that when you live, you want to make people. You don't ever make people think that you're against them. That live. He says, what brings peace to your life is not how people respond to you, but how you respond to them. He says sometimes in life we may bring unnecessary stress to our own lives because because we haven't made it clear to people. I'm never against you. I'm for everybody. I'm for my purpose. I'm for joy. I'm for love. I'm for that which has positivity and peace. A lot of us don't bring peace into the room. We bring negativity in the room. He says anybody who meets you should know, it should be clear to them that you are about working with people, not against them. He said you want people to feel like you're literally on their side, not self-serving, not looking at people from a utilitarian perspective, but you want everybody to win, desiring that everybody wins. He said this perspective, this bit of clarity can change your whole life. He says just when people meet you, they should feel the warmth, feel the love, and then they know that clarity. He says so the celebration is important. He says the consistency is important. The clarity is important. He talks about that has to be an everyday process. He says, and once you have the consistency, because that's very, very key, once the consistency is there, once the celebration is there, once the convincingness is there, the last thing, he said, his last point is celebration, consistency, clarity, and the last point is convincingness. 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 I was trying to find a word that really would bring home this point, and this is the best one I could find. Look what he says about convincingness. Very, very clear. He says, I need you to be convincing. I need you to have a convincingness about you. I want you to let people know that you're on their side. That's the clarity. But there's a convincingness that you got to have. Listen to what he says. Celebrate God all day, every day. That's a celebration. Celebrate God. That's celebration. All day, every day. I mean, revel in Him. That's the consistency. Make it as clear as you can. That's the clarity. He says, help them to see who's about to arrive and how it can happen any minute. At any minute, you got to let people know that something can shift, that something can change. He said, let me tell you what's going to happen in a few minutes. He says, in any minute, we don't know when the master's going to arrive. He says, so every day, your focus is convincing people that Jesus is coming. He says, I want you to, as much as you can, I want you to help people see the reality of Christ and help Christ to be the focus. He says that you can't convince people. You can't be Christ-centered. You can't convince people that Christ is coming if you don't show them you have their best interests at heart. Every day you get up, I want you to be about convincing people that the master is coming. I want you to convince them. I want you to make it clear to them. I want you to let them know that he could show up at any minute. I want you to become a mouthpiece. I want you to become the trumpet and the trombone players, to blow the horns at the Perusia and the Kerygma. The second coming of Christ is around the corner. Live with a convincingness about you, that you live knowing that Christ is in view, that you live wanting to let people know that he's coming back, that you live in such a way where people understand that at any moment something can shift, something can change. And so these are tips, because what it does when you point people to Jesus, what it does for you, it keeps your mind on Jesus. When you point people, let them know he can arrive in a minute, it reaffirms for you that he can arrive in a minute. See, the problem is, it's hard to think low when you're looking high. It's hard to be confused when your focus is on Christ. When you let people know that he's on his way back, that he can show up in a minute, and just like he can show up in a minute, your situation can change in a minute. Your circumstances can change in a minute. Oh my God, transformation can change in any minute. Paul says when he comes, it's going to be in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye. Yeah, in a moment. In a twinkling. He said, behold, I show you a mystery. We shall all change. We shall not sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in a twinkling of an eye. He says that's how quick things are going to be transformed when he shows up. But I believe that word is not just eschatological. I believe it's existential. That not only when he comes back in the rapture, will he come back suddenly, in the twinkling of an eye, in a moment. I want you to know that he's coming back like that. But he can show up in your life just like that, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. That while we're here on earth, some stuff can shift. You're one phone call away. You're one meeting away. You're one interview away. You're one yes away for the greatest transformation in your life. He can show up in any minute. And that's the key to daily living. Every day you're living with the view that Christ can intervene in my circumstance, can show up in a moment. If you put these principles into practice, not only will it help others, but it help keep you and me stable and solid emotionally. We're not moved to the left, tossed to the left or right, tossed by every issue, by every vicissitude. That we can be stabilized to the point where we know that God's got us. So every day, those four keys that you should live with, Paul says, even with crazy government, global pandemic, trying to make some adjustments in life, the four keys of daily living, he says, number one, celebration. Celebrate God. Not necessarily for things, but celebrate God. That's celebration. Then he says consistency. Celebrate it when all day, every day. I mean, revel in him. I want you to stay consistent every day, all day. Revel in him. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. That's the consistency in it. You need it. Thankfulness, gratitude moves way in it. Your attitude sometimes determines your altitude. And an attitude of gratitude takes you to a greater altitude. And so that's the consistency. Then he talks about the third point. I told you move from the celebration to the consistency. And then we talked about the importance of the clarity, how you got to make it clear to people that you're on their side, that you're not working against people. Don't make enemies necessarily. Do all you can to show people, to want people to win, because you want to work to bring peace into the world. You want to bring this in unnecessary stress and drama. Then the fourth thing he says, I want you to have the convincingness that every day of your life, live to convince people that the master is coming up, that he can show up any minute. And you can't tell them that he's going to show up in a minute. If you don't believe in your life, he can show up in a minute. I speak over your life that he's coming back. He's coming back to get us out of this mess one day. He's going to show up, and that can happen in a minute, to take us out of here. That's eschatological. That's futuristic. That's messianic. That's the Perusia. That's the second coming. He's going to get us out of here. I believe he's coming to get us. I believe he's going to take us back to be with him. But that's eschatological. But it's also existential. Because while we're here, he can show up. While we're here, he can make himself known. While we're here, you're one phone call. You're one interview. You're one yes. You're one business partner. You're one connection away from the greatest transformation in your life. But you can't convince people that he'll show up any minute. If you don't believe, he'll show up in a minute. I speak over your life. He's going to show up, not just eschatologically, but existentially. He's going to do something big in your life today. Do you believe that? Well, those are your 4 keys for daily living: the celebration, the clarity, your consistency, and your convincingness. Those are your points today: celebration, consistency, clarity, convincingness. And you be convinced. Let me tell you something. I'm convinced. I am persuaded that neither death nor life, angels, principalities, powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God. My friends, those are your 4 keys of daily living. Do me a favor today. Before you close your eyes today, please go to vote.org. Please go to vote.org. Before you close your eyes today, check your registration to make sure that you haven't been illegally or intentionally or unintentionally purged from the voting rolls. Go to vote.org. Check your voting registration to make sure nothing has changed, to make sure it's consistent. If you can, go early vote. And if you're in Georgia, please check out the campaign of Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. These gentlemen are both running for U.S. Senate. John Ossoff is running against David Perdue in the regular election that happens every 6 years. Raphael Warnock is running in a special election to fulfill the last 2 years of the term of Johnny Isakson, which is a 2-year term. Then he had to go back and run again. This is a special election. So about 20-something people in that election. And that's Kelly Loeffler, who was appointed by Governor Kemp to take the place of Johnny Isakson. But I want you to check out the campaigns of Raphael Warnock, my classmate from Morehouse College, and John Ossoff, if you're in Georgia, for U.S. Senate. Only 10 U.S. senators in the United States history. Amazing. Only 10. And 3 of them are serving now. Only 10 in the history of the U.S. 10 African-American senators. We have a chance to elect one here in Georgia. Now, I think we've had over 2,000 senators since the country's inception, and only 10 African-American. Over 2,000, only 10 African-American. And out of those 10, 3 of them are serving now. We have 45 presidents, only one of them African-American. Have a chance to make history. So check out the campaign, Raphael G. Warnock and John Ossoff for U.S. Senate. But check out your local elections as well. Not just the national, state, but local. Local elections are very, very important. Make sure if you can sign up for the census in your areas, make sure you do all you can to be civically engaged. You do that with celebration, do it with consistency, have clarity, have a convincingness that God can show up in our lives in any moment. My friends, you've been watching Morning Dew. I appreciate your time. As always, remember this: if you'll be good to God, God will be good to you. Till next time, peace.
We told them the smear ads were coming, and that's exactly what happened. You would think that Kelly Loeffler might have something good to say about herself if she really wants to represent Georgia. Instead, she's trying to scare people by taking things I've said out of context from over 25 years of being a pastor. But I think Georgians will see her ads for what they are. Don't you? I'm Raphael.